you. Hello everyone, welcome to the first ever Speak to the Geek live stream Q&A. First time I've done this, so apologies if anything goes wrong because I'm still getting used to the streaming software. This time I thought I'd talk about my solar and battery installation. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about what I've got sitting in my garage on the other side of that wall there. And then while I'm doing that, if you can get your questions in the chat, I'll have a look through that once I've finished telling you all about my installation and see if I can answer all of your questions. Let's see if this works. Let's go. Right. Okay, so let's talk about the solar installation first. So some of you might already be aware of what I've got, but just to recap, I've got a Solar Edge SE3680H inverter. That's a string inverter as opposed to lots of individual micro inverters. So it's one single inverter that all of the panels connect to, and it converts DC into AC, and that's the type of electrical power that you use in your house. You can't really use the DC that comes off the solar panels. So my inverter's got a maximum output of 3.68 kilowatts, which is pretty much the standard minimum you would get out of an inverter. But I do have power optimizers on each panel. Now, power optimizer is a way of making sure that if you get shading on any of your panels, that that shading doesn't cause an overall drop in production from all of the other panels. And I've got 3 panels on my garage, and I've got 7 panels on my roof of the house. And if in the afternoon the sun sort of starts going behind the house, then I start to get shading on the garage. So those power optimizers are quite important for me in my installation. Right, let's have a look at the batteries that I've got. I've got a Give Energy battery, and it's I've got a set of batteries. That's all of them there in that picture actually. I've got an AC3 on the right hand side, and I've got an all-in-one on the left, and you can see there's a total capacity there of 21.7 kilowatt hours. Maximum power output of 9 kilowatts, so that's pretty good. That'll get you through a Christmas dinner, to be honest. Right, so this is the first battery I had installed. It was a Give Energy AC3, so it's an AC coupled inverter, and there was an 8.2 kilowatt hour LFP battery. So that's quite important, is the battery chemistry in the Give Energy batteries is LFP, which is a bit of a safer technology to have in your house. Some of the power walls were a different type of technology, and they've got problems with thermal runaway potentially, whereas LFP is considered some of the safest that you can get. That inverter's got a maximum output of 3 kilowatts, so it's enough to run a heater at full power really. Oh yeah, important to know that it's 100% depth of discharge. That 8.2 kilowatt hour capacity is what you actually get out of the battery. I think it's 9.5 or 10 inside, so there's a little bit of unused capacity in there, just to make sure that as the battery wears out, you're not going into those danger zones at the top and the bottom. And when it was first installed, it had EPS backup, which means you get a special socket hanging off it. So if you have a power cut, that socket will provide you with power when you haven't got any to the house. Right, more batteries. This is the all-in-one. Now this was installed after the original solar and battery was installed, and it's a 13.5 kilowatt hour LFP battery, and that's a lot of capacity. That's about the same sort of size as the Tesla Powerwall. But importantly, you've got 6 kilowatts of power output, which is quite a bit. It'll do like your oven, your toaster, your microwave, and your heat pump all at the same time. Again, that's 100% depth of discharge, and it's whole house backup. So if you look on the right hand side, that little picture there is the Give Energy gateway. Now that gateway actually sits between your grid, like your smart meter, and your house. And if you have a power cut, then that gateway will sort of disconnect you from the grid properly and then allow your battery to power your whole house. up to a maximum of 6 kilowatts, of course. If you go over 6 kilowatts, then weird things might start to happen. It will have to shut down. So yeah. Now there is one slide that I missed here, so I'm going to go back to the beginning because for some reason I started on slide number 2, and that is my panels. There we go. There's a little drone shot of the top of my house, so you can see there are my 7 panels on the main roof and 3 on the garage, and they were installed in December 2021, so I've had them a good couple of years now. 390 watts each, and a Trina Vertex, just in case anyone was interested in that. They're the monocrystalline panels, so really nice sort of shiny black. They're not like the silver and black ones, so they're quite modern looking, and they don't look too out of place on the roof of my house. Right, let's go back to my main camera full screen. How many questions have I got in here at the moment? Okay, well, not really many. We've got, let's have a bit of a read. What have we got going on? Someone saying they've got, is it Al McGee says they've got a east-west split in Ireland. Loving it. And Diara, thanks Diara. How many loads of laundry can that dry? Well, let's do some maths. How much do you reckon? Right, so I've got 21.7 kilowatt hours. What do you reckon a tumble dryer actually uses? So my tumble dryer is a heat pump tumble dryer, and I reckon it uses an average, it seems to run at about between 300 and 500 watts. So if we said it's running at, let's say, 350 watts. Now it takes a long time to dry in my tumble dryer, so that is about, let's say, 4 hours. Now I've got to get my calculator up, haven't I? Where's my calculator? 21.7, no, let's start with the 350 watts. By 4 hours, 1.4 kilowatt hours is what it might use to dry my laundry load. And 21.7, 1.4. So in answer to your question, Diara, that is 15.5 loads of washing it would dry if that was all it was doing. Good evening from Paris to you too, Greg. And how are those big plates of seafood and escargot that you're eating? Just for anyone else's reference, Greg sent me a photo earlier, and it was just this massive bowl of seafood. Andrew Jarrett, good evening. Has anyone got any questions? Because this is going to get very boring if nobody's got any questions. Hello Andy in Somerset. Someone must have a question. I've got 27 concurrent viewers right now. Somebody must have a question. Lovely. Okay. Right, well, if nobody's got any questions, I think I might actually give you a few stats from my solar installation. So let's have a look. I'm going to be looking at my energy dashboard in Home Assistant right now. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing. Oh, got a question there. Do you fancy the new all-in-one version 2? That's the new hybrid one with the little screen on the front. So I'm going to go to Everything Electric Live on Friday coming up, and they've got it on display there. So I don't... You see, the problem is I've got those power optimizers because I get shading, so I don't know the full details on how that would work with the shading on the roof of my house. I'd probably have to get TiVo optimizers if I was to have the new all-in-one. So I'm not sure it's suitable for my property, but if I was starting again, I'd probably consider it. So if I had a blank canvas on my house, I'd probably consider the all-in-one 2, the new hybrid one, because I think it's got 6, you can do 6 strings, so I could have one string coming off the garage roof and another string coming off the main roof of the house. That would be quite good, because then essentially I could get rid of the power optimizers, which, let's be honest, is an extra bit of kit up on the roof and another single point of failure. So for that panel, yeah, that would be really annoying. And my wife's now asked a question. As somebody who doesn't know anything about solar panels, what's the best type to get and how do you go about choosing what's best for you? Thank you for your support, Vicky. Right. Lots of Googling. I think you've got to do lots of Googling, lots of watching YouTube channels like mine to find out what's best in your scenario, because maybe some people have got east-west facing roofs and some people have got south-facing roofs. So I've got a south-facing roof. It's sort of south-east facing, and there's that's the best direction for your roof to face in the UK, because that gets the most sun. If you've got an east-west facing sort of roof layout, then you kind of want to get panels on both sides, so as the sun goes over your house, it starts off on one side generating there in the morning, and then in the afternoon you're still generating late into the evening. I don't get that, because at about 3:30, 4 o'clock most days I've sort of run out of sunshine really. It's gone behind the side of the house, but most of mine comes in the morning. As for the best type of panels, there's actually the new the bifacial panels being talked about a lot at the moment. And they're panels where the light can come through the panel and it sort of bounces off the roof, and you get an extra boost of generation from the rear of the panel as well. I don't know how much better. There's rumours it might be anything from 10 to 30% extra generation from those, but yeah, I think the jury's out and we need a scientific test on how well those perform. But to be honest, most solar panels are pretty much a commodity, so that you go with the best sort of price, the best sort of generation capacity. So like mine are 390 watts, but you tend to get 450s and even 500s sometimes now. So you go for the most capacity that you can actually afford and fit on your roof. The panels aren't actually the expensive part of your installation. It's the scaffolding and the man time to actually do the installation where the costs come from. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Somebody says, do you wish you got a heat pump earlier? Yes, I do, but I got it as early as I could. You can't actually install everything at the same time, well, not for most people, so I've got a limited budget, so it actually took me quite a while to save up for the solar panels and the battery. We'd already got, I can't remember the order of whether we got the electric car first or the solar panels first. I think we got the electric car first and switched on to the Octopus Go tariff. Oh, that leads me on to this. Look, I've got that. You'll like this. There we go. I wanted to put that on the screen because yeah, we're on the Octopus Go tariff, which gives you cheap energy between midnight and 5:30 in the morning. And that is a massive thing to consider when you've got an EV or even batteries, because you need to have that off-peak energy period so as you can get your cheap energy, because the whole point of having your batteries, it really is to reduce your average unit rate. So if it's like 30p during the day, I've just picked a round figure, I don't know, it's 25 point something now, but off peak you can pay 7.5p. I think I pay 8.5p on Octopus Go. So the idea is that yes, I'm going to use some at peak times, but I want to minimize the amount of peak energy I use, charge up my batteries off peak, and let that see me through the whole day. And in order to do that, you need an off-peak tariff. Now, I've got Octopus Go and I use Octopus, so if you do switch to Octopus, don't forget my referral code there. There we go, plug over. Let me close that down. But yeah, I do really wish I got the heat pump earlier. We were kind of forced into it because our boiler was failing and it was getting towards winter, last winter, and we really needed to get it replaced then. So we did that. But if you do go and get a heat pump, if you've got a mortgage still on your property, it's worth contacting your mortgage provider, because a lot of mortgage providers actually have green incentives. I know I'm with Nationwide and they did a 0% interest green loan for heat pumps, and that's what we took them up on that offer. If you're with Halifax, they have got a really good deal as well. There's like it's not a loan, but it's like a cashback. And if you're going to get solar panels or a battery, and you're with Halifax, then that is a really good because you get cash back for each of those things. I think it's something like £1,000 cash back for a heat pump, £500 for a battery, and £500 for for solar panels. So if you're getting solar panels, a battery, and a heat pump installed, that's £2,000 cash that you can get from your mortgage provider towards it. I might stick a link to that down in the description after this is finished, because that's quite a good deal. With all the new tech in the last year, what are you jealous that you don't have? More solar panels. Really, I would like to have had solar panels on the other side of the house, on the north facing roof. I reckon I'd have got another 40 to 50% generation out of them. And yeah, my solar array is quite small really, 10 390 watt panels, so 3.9 kilowatts on that 3.68 kilowatt inverter. I would really like north facing panels. I think they would have been great, but the extra cost at the time, I just couldn't push myself that far. But I would have loved extra solar panels. That also answers the question of what would I do if I started again, I guess. I would probably put panels on the north facing roof. I think the quote was for like another £5,000 or £6,000 on top of what I paid just for the north facing ones. If I was to get it done now separately, it wouldn't pay for itself anytime soon, but if I'd have done it at the time, it would have been great. Maybe with those new bifacial panels, loads of extra generation there, that might be pretty good. Let's have a look at these questions. Good that they're coming in now. Lee W. Seriously thinking of going down the heat pump route. I have 5 kilowatt solar with 19 kilowatt batteries and Octopus customer. Do I go with them for their setup, or stick with Valent? The thing with Octopus, now I really like the installation that they've done for me, and they were perfect fit for our house and our budget. And it really does depend on what you've got in your house. So for me, I think I prefer the Daikin heat pump that I've got over the Valent. So if it's a choice between those two technologies, then I'd go with the Daikin every time, just for the integration that I've got into Home Assistant, and the control on the screen. I mean, it works perfectly. I've seen a few people have mentioned to me that the remote control with Valent is a little bit unreliable. The cloud control that they've got drops out, and the integration with Home Assistant can be a bit unreliable. That might have improved recently, but yeah, the Daikin one has only had one outage, and it was a scheduled outage. They actually sent me an alert notification to my phone, so I knew it was going to go down for a couple of hours. But in terms of your actual installation, you've got to get someone in to give you a quote, see what they recommend, because try not to limit yourself by the specific hardware. You want to get the best heat pump and the best solution for your house. So for example, with Octopus, they've got like boilerplate designs almost, and we've gone off topic a bit to heat pumps here. Maybe I'll do that for a future one. But essentially, boilerplate designs from Octopus, they sort of pick the one that's closest to your heat loss and your house design and adjust it slightly. So you won't get the most efficient system, but you'll get an efficient system that's good enough. But yeah, basically get a quote, get a few quotes in, see what they recommend, and take it from there. Right, let's have a look. What are the best PV panels to go for today? Said Bandits at 3 o'clock. Back to the bifacial ones. I think they're getting a lot of interest. I think they would. They're about this. They're a little bit more expensive than normal panels, but as I said, the panels aren't the big cost when you're actually getting your solar installation. So if you can get the same sized, physical size panels on your roof, but they're bifacial and they generate more energy, then go for those. I don't know about brands really. They're all much and muchness. How long would your system run your heat pump for? Oh no, it's just moved. Said Chris Holland. Depends on the temperature outside and many factors really. Quite a few hours. Quite a few hours. I mean, if it was a sunny day and my batteries were at full by the time that the heat kicked in the evening, then if there was a power cut, it'll probably see us all the way through the evening. But today, for example, I think my batteries are down to about 40% because it's been raining, there's been barely any generation. So if there was a power cut this evening, I would be a little concerned that it wouldn't see us all the way through. I'd probably pause the central heating for a little bit just so as we've got the power to see us through. But no, the heat pump tends to run between 300-400 watts up to 1.5 kilowatts, depending on temperature outside, whether it's ramping up or not. So I'd say the average draw is about 600 watts. So that's quite a few hours if that was all it was doing. But don't forget, you've got all the lights in the house, you've got computers running, all sorts of things like that. Let's have a look. I keep saying, let's have a look. Bryony Hewitt. Hello, Bryony. Are you concerned about fire risk with batteries? How do you minimise that risk? I think I talked early on about the battery chemistry that I've got. This is LFP. So there's two main competing lithium battery chemistries. You've got LFP, lithium iron phosphate, and NMC, which is nickel, manganese, cobalt. Someone correct me in the comments if I've got that wrong. And the NMC technology is the older style. It's the sort you've probably got in your phone batteries. It's the sort that's in most electric cars that are on the road. That does have a problem with thermal runaway if the battery management system isn't up to scratch. So if you overcharge it too much, it could get hot, and as it breaks down, the chemistry inside can start to merge and you start to get thermal runaway. I'm not going to explain thermal runaway. I can't explain it. I'm not a physicist, so Google that yourself. But LFP, on the other hand, has got two advantages. First one is it's cobalt free, so there's no cobalt in it, and there's a bit of a concern amongst the anti-green people that they say, oh, what about all the cobalt in the batteries? What about all the cobalt in the diesel refining? But that aside, there's no cobalt in an LFP battery to my knowledge, and so that's the first advantage. And the second one is they're a much more stable chemistry, so I think it is possible to get thermal runaway, but you've really got to try hard to get thermal runaway on an LFP battery. Therefore, an LFP battery in a garage or in a house, I think is perfectly safe. NMC batteries I would be a bit more cautious about. So the early power walls, I think I'd rather them outside or in an outbuilding or something like that. But yeah, LFP batteries, I've got no problems. That's actually why I chose the Give Energy battery in the first place. It's one of two reasons. One was it was cost. They're really good value batteries, and the second one is it's a safe chemistry because I wanted it in my garage. You can put the Give Energy batteries outside if you've got a canopy to sort of protect it from the serious weather problems like leaves falling on it, because they you don't want leaves blocking the vents and overheating the batteries, because that's bad for the inverters mainly. But yeah, LFP batteries, I've got no problems with those. They're a pretty safe technology, and in fact we've got an MG4 car, and that uses LFP. I think the latest Teslas are using LFP. A lot of the new electric car models seem to be moving over to using LFP as their chemistry as well, so it's a lot safer in cars and home batteries. Right. After many, Andy T says, after many failed heat batteries, I'm going back to an unvented cylinder, preheating the water to feed my intergas combi, heating the hot water tank with excess generation from my 8.7 kilowatt peak dual PV system. Oh, okay. So heat battery, I assume you mean something like a what are they called? A Thermino, something like that, like the big salt blocks that you can charge with electricity, or you can do that. It's like an alternative to a hot water tank, for those that aren't aware. So instead of having a hot water tank, you have this great big heat battery, and it stores heat rather than hot water, and then you pump your water through that heat battery. Cold water goes in, hot water comes out, and they're pretty good. They take up a lot less space, but obviously Andy T has been having issues with it, but is now using excess generation from solar PV. That's great. If you don't have a heat pump, then actually using excess solar generation to heat your hot water or your heat battery is a really good way of doing things. I used to have a My Energy Eddy, which is probably the gold standard in energy diverters, power diverters, and essentially you just plug it into your immersion heater or your Thermino or heat battery, and it can just divert the power straight in there. Now, it all depends on what the energy prices are like, as to whether that is viable, because I think at the moment there's a bit of a quirk. If you've got the intelligent Octopus Go tariff, then your export during the day, I think it's 15p per kilowatt hour, but your import in the evening off peak is 7p or 7.5p. So that's a big difference. It's not really worth using your excess solar. You're better off exporting that out to the grid, earning 15 pence, and then charging your heat battery or your hot water tank up at night at the cheaper off-peak rate, and you're essentially saving yourself 7.5p per kilowatt hour. That would be my preference if I was doing that. But obviously when you get a heat pump, all the maths changes. Because you've got you're at least got a 200% efficiency. I think I'm getting an average of 250% efficiency out of my heat pump for just the hot water on its own, sometimes 300% on really warm days during the summer. Right, who else have we got? I need an assistant to read all these comments really for me. It's not gripping watching for you guys while I go through them. Right, Stephen Graham. I've currently got a Tesla battery. Octopus are meant to integrate this soon as well. Would intelligent flux be better than flux, which I'm currently on? I have no electric car and Go isn't an option. That's a really good question, and one I couldn't answer specifically for your scenario without more information. But now I'm going to plug someone else's channel here. Go and watch Tim and Kat's Green Walk, because Tim's got some videos on there all about what he calls his rule of thumb. So he's got this really simple way that you can calculate, out of all the tariffs available, based on a few factors which tariff is going to be best for you at a particular time of year. So go and watch Tim and Kat's videos and look for his rule of thumb, and he'll be able to. He's got a spreadsheet available, and you can plug your data into that, and it will tell you whether intelligent flux is likely to be better than flux for you. That's the best advice I can give you for that one, really. Eco-terrorist says, evening. Good evening, eco-terrorist. Andy T, I bought a Habitat elevation automation unit, but I'm struggling to program it. Do you have any recommendations? Home Assistant. Well, I suppose I should elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, I'm really deeply embedded in the Home Assistant ecosystem, as you might be aware if you've watched my other videos. It's free, open source, whereas Habitat is a bit more proprietary, I think. I did look at Habitat at one point, but it's not for me. It didn't support everything that I needed, and I just couldn't customize it the way I wanted. So Home Assistant, I think, is better. There's a huge community of Home Assistant users, so if you can't figure out how to do something, somebody else will probably have figured it out, written a guide or a bit of software for you, or quite often someone like me or one of the many other smart home YouTubers out there will actually have written a guide. So I've got a lot of guides on my website that go with the videos, so you can just copy and paste the configuration in. But yeah, Home Assistant connects to so many different things. I would prefer that over something like Habitat, but it's going to be a bigger, steeper learning curve, I would say. But hopefully the community's there to sort of support you in that transition. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi. That's probably the easiest way of doing it, is to just get a Raspberry Pi 4 or newer, and you can just flash a little SD card, just goes straight into the Raspberry Pi, and it will just boot up. You can run it as a virtual machine on a NAS if you wanted to, or a little mini PC. But I'd really recommend Home Assistant over Habitat personally. Eco-terrorist got a question. Could you do a video on displaying weather hourly attributes without going to click the weather app? What do you mean, sorry? I don't understand that one. Could you do a video on displaying weather hourly attributes without going to click on the weather app? If you could explain that one a bit better to me, sorry, I don't understand quite what you mean. I mean, yeah, I think I might get it, but yeah. Okay, get back to me on that one, please. Stephen Graham, do you think you'll get more batteries next year, or got any for ground mounted solar? Oh, I would like ground mounted solar, but I don't have any ground to mount them on. I have actually got one unused panel sitting in my back garden, because they were hoping to get 4 solar panels on the roof of my garage, but they can only fit 3 in the end. So there is one solar panel sitting down the side of my house, totally unused, and I would love to use that somehow. I don't know how yet, but I've got no ground. The problem is with my garden, I've not really shown it on any of the videos, but it's got 3 tiers. So there's a ground level when I walk out the conservatory or the back door, and then it drops down 2.5-3 foot down a few steps to another layer where we've got a little patio, and then it drops down again to a really sort of narrow area. So there is like a 7-foot drop total from the house down to the end of the garden, and none of those areas are any good for putting solar panels on, because they're on the north side of the house, and the sun is, well, the house shades the sun totally, so we don't get much sun in our back garden. So we can't put them out the front either, because that would need planning permission and it would look a bit It'd look a bit awful having a couple of solar panels ground mounted in the front garden. I don't think I'd get away with it. I would quite like to do that though. Have you watched Alan Hart? His battery inverter setup looks a bit OTT, but what do you think? I haven't, but I am writing that down now because I want to see an over-the-top battery and inverter setup. There we go, made a note. I'll do that as some homework. Put the solar panel on the shed. Right, my that would crush the shed. My shed is falling apart as it is. Actually, inside I've had to put extra pieces of wood because the roof had started to go rotten. So we're actually going to get rid of that shed at some point and get a new shed down the bottom of the garden, out of the way, so we can have a bit of a bigger patio area. But yeah, I would love to put a solar panel on the shed. It would crush it though. And I've got a micro inverter. Obviously, yeah, there's a spare micro inverter in my garage as well. And then Biohazard has got message retracted. Oh, that's a shame. I want to see what that said. Right, let's go through, because we've gone over time now. I was only going to run this until 7:45, but lots of questions have come in and I've talked too much. I'm going to answer another one of Diara's questions. Oh, it's not a question, you're just talking about microinverters. Diara, come on. We've already established microinverters were not as good as string inverters. And if anyone doesn't know what I'm on about, go and watch our series that we made together last year on Solar Edge versus Enphase, and where Solar Edge clearly won by a nice decent margin there. Oh, Bryony Hewitt, what's the lifespan for a set of solar panels? I think usually they're guaranteed for 25 years. My panels are guaranteed for 25 years. Most of the equipment that goes with it is either 10 or 15 year guarantee. So I think a string inverter is not intended to last the entire lifetime of solar panels. So you'd probably replace a string inverter once during the lifespan of those panels, but there are inverters coming along that have got 15, 20, 25 year warranties on them, especially like the Enphase kit that I've just totally dissed. They do have lifetime guarantees of the 25 years, so you end up with your panels and your microinverters have the same guarantee. In reality, there are solar panels still running now that are older than 25 years. The only issues you tend to get is that the amount that they generate deteriorates over time. I don't know how much they deteriorate, but I think that there is something like you can knock 10% off after the first few years. So the older the panels get, the less they generate, but also the more that technology's moved on. So you get solar panels from what 10 years ago might be doing 200, 250 watts. When I got mine 3 years ago nearly, 390 watts, and you're now getting 450 watts and 500 watts. So technology moves on, the panels become less viable, so but generally you're looking at 25 years lifespan there. Right, what else? For someone who isn't a geek, how hard is it to start using Home Assistant? Is it more trouble than it's worth if you don't know what you're doing? That's what my videos are trying to help with, trying to make it easier. So yes, it is a learning curve. You are going to lose hours of your life getting to grips with it, but it's worth it if you want full control over all of your gadgets that can be controlled in a smart sort of way. You've got to think of it as a hobby. You can't think of it as a little box that will just sit there all alone and can be left alone and will do whatever it wants, whatever you've asked it to forever. It will need feeding and watering. It will crash occasionally. Things will need upgrading on it. Things will break. You've got to want to get involved. If you don't want to do any of that, then Home Assistant might not be for you. You might want to look at just something basic. If you just want basic automations like lighting and things like that, then something like Alexa, routines and things like that. Maybe even get Samsung smart things. That's quite basic in terms of its functionality. It's kind of a step up from Alexa routines. It'll do more complex things, but yeah, Home Assistant isn't going to be a set and forget device, but it can do so much more than just home automation. I mean, I use it for all my energy monitoring. I mean, you might have seen my graphs that I put together in my solar update videos. I do like a solar update video once every 6 months at the moment, and in there I've got loads of graphs, and all my energy is tracked using Home Assistant. So all the Give Energy batteries, I've got a little bit of software called Give TCP, which is an open source project made by the community, and that feeds all the data from my Give Energy batteries into Home Assistant. So I get amazing graphs showing me hour by hour what I'm using. It's definitely worth the effort, I think. Any more. Now there's people talking about cleaning solar panels. I've never cleaned the solar panels, but I live in South Wales, and you don't need to clean your solar panels, because if it's not raining at that moment in time, it will be raining very shortly. And over the summer, you get a bit of a build-up of sort of dust on the panels, especially when we get like the very dry weather with the Saharan dust blown over. A couple of times we've had like you could actually draw in the solar panels if you wanted to. You could leave all sorts of messages in them, but within a few days it'll have rained and it'll have washed them off. So I've never cleaned them. I've not noticed any drop in production over the last few years from never cleaning them. In the summer, yes, they do look a bit dirty at times, but in the winter, well, right now, they look perfectly clean on the roof. Peter Hollis, are you happy with how you have the Daikin heat pump integrated with Home Assistant? Are you exclusively using the cloud API for this, or are you using ESPL Therma? I'm going to have to do a heat pump video, aren't I? A heat pump live Q&A, I think, because I'm getting a lot of heat pump questions. Yes, I'm sort of happy with how I've got it integrated. I'm using both of those. ESPL Therma works great for getting data out of the heat pump. It is very reliable, but it doesn't really do control. You can get it to do limited control if you were to start wiring up relays, but I don't want to start soldering relays to the circuit board of my heat pump, because if that went wrong, I'd lose my heating and probably my warranty. So ESPL Therma in its basic form, it's just a little ESP32 device that connects 3 or 4 wires to a serial port inside. It's very easy to do. It's difficult to break the heat pump with that method. You're not going to do any serious damage. It's just a serial connection. So I use that, but I wouldn't start sticking relays on, which is why I use the cloud control for doing things like controlling the thermostat and hot water boosting and things like that. That's very useful. Biohazard, have you seen the Fogstar 15.5 kilowatt hour home battery? It seems really cheap for £2,500. Making another note, more homework there. Fogstar, no, I've not heard of that. 15.5 kilowatt hour battery for £2,500. Wow. Okay, no, not heard of that at all. That does sound almost too good to be true. Yes. If I broke the heat pump, I would have a very unhappy wife. Okay, any more questions? Lots of comments. My solar panels are from 2011 and work well. Good, yeah, see, what, 14-year-old solar panels still going. I know that there are people in my road with solar panels from around that sort of time, and they're still working fine. So my neighbours have got solar panels. 2 houses in this village, in this road, have had solar panels since around the time I moved in here, which has got to be 15 years ago. So they're doing very well. I know they're still generating. They're low capacity ones, so they're like 220 watt panels in one case, but still 10 of those, 2.2 kilowatts. It's pretty good. Oh, and they were also on an old is it the Fit tariff? The one where you basically get paid to generate and get paid a fixed sum to export. I mean, those are, yeah, those solar panels installed at that sort of time, they'd have paid for themselves in a couple of years easily. Can solar panels hang slightly over the edge of the side or top of a roof, or do you need to leave a slight gap by law? Now, you do need to leave a slight gap. I don't think it's I think it's building regulations more than anything. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's a 20 centimetre gap all around the edge of the roof. There are lots of rules for how you have to put the solar panels on the roof depending on your roof type. So if you've got a flat roof, I think there's got to be a metre gap. So if you've got a flat roof and you want to put them sort of at angles on a flat roof, I think you have to leave a metre gap around the edge of that, so that can limit the number of panels that you've got to put on them. It's all part of the MCS guidelines though, and I think the MCS guidelines are sort of what the building regs, they're sort of intertwined with the building regulations. So yeah, you definitely don't want to have them overhanging the edge of a roof. If for any other reason, then if it gets windy, that could kick up some sort of force on the edge of your roof. You don't want it acting as sort of like a spoiler on your roof and getting any lift and pulling your roof to pieces. Really, that would be a bit dangerous. So you definitely want them well within the profile of your roof. Right. Any more for any more? Wind 300 millimeters normally. Yeah, I do something like that. Yeah, you check the guidelines. Don't take my guesses as fact, please. My wife says yes, I would be in trouble if the heat pump broke. Not if the heat pump broke. If I broke the heat pump. If the heat pump just generally broke, actually that wouldn't be a problem. Well, it would be a problem, but I've got a support contract from Octopus with that, which is really quite good, and I have used them, and they come out pretty quick, because we had just after we installed it, there was a bit of a leaky pipe on one of the taps, and they came out and fixed that really quickly. In fact, that's covered in one of my other videos actually. Eco Terrace, I'm an installer, 200 plus installs over 15 years. Wow, that's a lot. Do you like doing them in the summer or the winter the best? I don't know what's going to be best, being up on the roof in the heat or being up on the roof in the cold and wet. I don't think I could be in... See, installing solar panels, it does look a good job, but I don't think I could do that. I'd be scared of falling off the roof. On the subject of solar panels, are you happy with how your heat pump has performed? Thanks, just out of interest. I know you have commented on the noise level in your videos, but how do the family find it? Nobody in my family has any problem with the heat pump as far as I am aware, but you'll probably see some comments appear right now if that is not the case. But I'll be honest with you, I was a little concerned going to the heat pump because it was a new technology. We'd got a gas boiler before that we knew worked, apart from when it didn't work, when it was resetting itself and I had to reboot it. But moving to a heat pump, especially with our micro bore piping, I was a little concerned after saying, oh yes, this is perfect, this is going to be the absolute best solution possible, it's going to be ideal for our house. A little nagging voice in the back of my head going, I really hope it is, please don't be a dud. But no, it's been perfect. It's kept the house really warm, and it's not cost a fortune to run at all. It costs the same as gas to run, in fact less, because we've got the battery, so we're offsetting it. So overall it's cheaper to run for us. Noise levels, can't really hear it. If I go in the garage and it's running, I can hear it because that's a really thin door. If I'm in the kitchen and it's really quiet, I can sort of hear it through the window, but it's really quiet generally. You've got to really listen for it. Stephen Graham, do you think domestic wind turbines are viable in an urban environment or just not practical? I don't think they're practical. Especially on a domestic property, you've got all sorts of problems. So you've got to get them at a certain height for them to be able to work efficiently. Because if you just stick them on the top of a roof of a house, you've got all the I don't know what they call it, bad wind. No, I can't use bad wind. Can't say bad wind. I've just said it like 4 times. But essentially, it's not clean air, and you won't get a nice even flow of air across your wind turbine because it's going to be buffeted around by all of the roofs that are nearby. So you've got to get it a certain height above all of the obstacles in order for it to generate. And then there's also the planning permission problems around them. If you can get permitted development for a wind turbine if it's a certain size, or you can get permitted development for a heat pump if it's a certain size, but if you want to get both of them at the same time, you've got to get planning permission. And I think even in Wales, you've got to get planning permission anyway for it. It's really complicated, and they don't generate a huge amount anyway, especially of the size that you'd be able to get on a house. So I think, as cool as they look, I mean, and they really do look cool, and I really, really want a wind turbine on my house, just to say I've got a wind turbine on my house because I can generate even when it's night time. I don't think they're viable. They don't generate reliably, and they don't generate enough. I don't think they're even financially viable given how much they cost as well. And then you've got all the vibration problems from them. You've got to maintain the bearings on them. So yeah, I think wind turbines at the moment are probably a non-starter. Oh, my wife says no noise complaints from her. Good. I can't believe you're still watching this all this way through. You're going to watch Strictly. Anything else? Anyone thinking of a turbine, watch Gary Does Solar video. Yes, Gary Does Solar has done a brilliant video all about the viability of having a wind turbine on your house, and everything that I've just said about wind turbines is basically what I learned from his video. So go and watch his video, and that's going to get it straight from the source. My wife says we're not getting a wind turbine. What if you were just to get home from work one day and there was one up on the roof already? Would that be allowed? I can't hear her shouting no, so that must be okay. Yes, you'd like one as well, Stephen Graham, and but you couldn't get one, so you went down the Ripple route. Yes, I've gone down the Ripple route as well. So I have got Ripple Energy. For those who don't know about Ripple Energy, it's basically like a cooperative wind farm or solar farm sort of thing. So if you can't get solar on your roof, maybe you live in rented accommodation, or you're in a flat that's got no roof because there's just other flats above you, then you can actually join Ripple Energy, and you pay them some money for shares in a wind farm or a solar farm, and then once it's built, you then get a proportion of the earnings from that wind farm paid into your energy account. A lot of people criticise this because they see it as a bit of an investment. I don't see it as an investment. If you want to go down the investment route, let's say you've got, I don't know, pick a number, £2,000 you want to spend on something, an investment of some variety. If you're expecting to get a really good return on that £2,000, don't go down Ripple Energy. Just do your typical stocks and shares and that sort of stuff, or put in a high interest bank account. But if you actually want to pay for your energy in advance and potentially get a bit more back, then Ripple Energy is a good scheme for that. So I consider it as paying for my energy bills in advance. So I bought several shares in, I've got in 3 projects actually. There's a wind farm which is live up in Scotland. There is a solar farm which is being built and should be live in December, I think, down in Devon or Cornwall. And then there's another one up in, is it Whitelaw Bray is the third one. I can't remember exactly, I think that's up in Scotland again, and that's another wind farm, and I've got a token amount in that one, just to support the project more than anything, because I think it's a worthwhile cause. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket though and have a risk of all of these things collapsing, because a lot could happen. You never know if a project might collapse, or if the energy companies might stop supporting these projects. So there's a lot of risk involved, but overall I think it's a worthwhile sort of project to support. So at the moment I'm getting anywhere between £3 and £7 a month back from my investment in the wind farm, the proper public one, so which is their second project, which is, what's it called? Kirkhill Wind Farm, that's the one. So I'm getting like between about £6 a month at the moment. I'm hoping that picks up over winter when it gets really windy, because I want to offset that against my lack of solar generation over winter. Right, I think I have gone on long enough because I've nearly done an hour. So thank you everybody for all your questions, and yeah, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for my next video, which will be on Saturday morning. Can't remember what I've got scheduled, but I'm sure it's amazing. Anyway, thank you for watching. Goodbye.